A video popped up for me yesterday. The algorithm sent me a video wherein a man was discussing, or talking about, supposedly, issues to do with young men. The video started off, it's only short, it's just a clip, and it started off talking about the suicide rate of young men and how, when it comes to suicide, men are at the top, young men. And then it talked about depression and all these issues that young men are facing. The man then proceeded to talk about all the struggles that women had faced throughout the ages and how that men were in a privileged state. He conflated two issues while promoting one. His talk was supposedly on the issues facing young men, and yet he spent the majority of it talking about the issues that faced women. Perhaps the audience were predominantly women. I don't know. Perhaps he was seeking to please them and maybe even wanted a date. That's how it sounded. I have found that when it comes to working with families, it's important to remain neutral, not to take sides, not to come from any particular ideology. I worked with families for over 28 years, mothers, fathers, their children. It was extremely important and vital that I did not take sides. I had to hear each person and be with their perspective and their reality of how they were seeing the issues in their family, of what they were facing. Hi, just a quick word to say that my books, including my latest for children, are available in-store and online. You can find a full list of my books at tipene.com. If you're enjoying my content, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you for your support. Now back to the video. There's such a strong drive at the moment in society to choose sides, to get behind certain ideologies or beliefs. You have to view the world this way or that way. That way of thinking is of no help to the people that I've worked with over the years. It means nothing to their lives, to their day-to-day lives, to their relationship. If anything, it just gets in the way, it just clouds it. When I was doing Warrior Kids, there was one period there in the early 2000s where I had groups, organisations in the community who were pushing me to take sides, to make choices, basically to discriminate against one group of society. So there was the voice from one group that I should only be working with boys and that they would fund that if I only ran Warrior Kids classes primarily for boys. Then there was an opposing voice to that. No, only run classes for girls. Girls need it more than boys. So only run Warrior Kids classes for girls. That was another voice from another group. On top of that, there was a third one, that I should only be working with Māori children. Nobody else should be allowed to come to my classes. They should be predominantly for Māori kids. There was funding on the table, funding offered with each of those three voices, three groups. I would get funded if I worked solely with those groups. Warrior Kids has always been for all children. In my classes, everybody came. I have had kids whose families came from all over the world to take part. That's the rich tapestry that is Warrior Kids. There was never choosing. There was the same sort of drive there too, to choose between the men and the women, as though I should be paying more attention to the issues facing the woman in the family or to the man in the family. Now, some of these families were coming with some really big issues. But what people failed to understand was, right, so I'm on the front line here. I'm working with that. I'm on the front line. I'm dealing with stuff that's just, It's basically happening in front of me. I had one boy come to a class one day. He had this huge black eye. So I come into the class. The kids are all waiting for me. It was in a school. I set myself up. I come over and I start to acknowledge them. And my way of acknowledging kids and Māori kids is I make a little bit of eye contact with each and every one. You know, I'll look around the group so that we assemble in a circle in the beginning. And so I would look around each child so that we connect, we meet, that we're there. So I make a point of connecting with each one. And so I come round and I see him. And my reaction, of course, is, what happened to you? It's a beautiful boy, absolutely beautiful. I was like, what happened to you? And he told me his uncle was upset with him that morning and had kicked him in the eye with his work boot on. So that was it. Everybody needed to sit down because I was not prepared to run a class when this was just presented to me. Now that's an example of what I mean about the front line. And that was a constant. You know, there's so many things I could say. I mean, another child opened up. We do a high and low point in the class, and so that's where the children share a high point from their week, a low point from their week. And you will find other videos where I've spoken about this. It's a very important part of the class because it brings up so much. Here's one child, he sits down. All the kids around him are sharing different low points. Something didn't work out at school, or something didn't work out at home. This one boy's low point was walking in the garage and finding his dad hanging. So when I say front line, I mean it was right out there. And again, there's so many more stories that the kids brought to me about their lives. And with both of those cases, those kids weren't talking in a fantasy land. It was true that these things happened to them. When you're in that position, you can't be coming from any ideology or anything. You have to have a clear mind. You have to be clear from any sort of belief or idea other than what's best for the family, what's best for the child, for the parents, what's best for the family. That should be number one. That's it. Forget about everything else. Forget about all your issues and everything. Forget about all that. It's what does this family need right now? What is happening for them? Are they struggling to make ends meet? Do they need food? Where are we going to go to get that food from? If mum and dad are fighting, okay, right, what's mum saying? What's her experience in this? What support can be given to her? And then it's speaking with dad, listening to him. What's his perspective with it all? With both mum and dad, what was it like for them growing up? Are they bringing anything from the past into the future? Is anything holding them back? Any trauma? So I have always found in my work that it was really important to be neutral. A lot of the time, a family will turn up and as far as they're concerned, the issue's with their child. The child's misbehaving, it's all the child's fault. If the child just got into line, fell into line, then everything would be fine. And the family would flow and it would be all happy. I love those children, by the way. They're scapegoats. And they're very important. They play an important part in the family. And they need to be looked after. And again, that's being that whole neutral. It's like listening to mum, okay? Listening to dad, right? Okay, now let's speak to each of the children in the family. Let's hear what their perspective is of the situation. Eventually what will happen is the focus will move away from the child to the relationship of the parents. If there are issues in the family, it stems from the parents and the choices that they are making and the home that they've created together. And it's important not to blame them. See, this is where the neutrality has to come in, because sometimes the parents aren't even aware of what it is that they're doing or how they're doing it. Their trauma could be so on the surface that they are blinded by it, that they can't even see. So it may mean that they need to go off and do some work individually by themselves. But it's about holding that with compassion and being neutral. Now, if there's been obvious abuse, if people have been hurt, then those that did that need to be held accountable. So it's not a soft approach, as you may think. This neutrality, you have to be prepared to, on the one hand, you've got to support each person, but you've also got to challenge them. And if they have hurt others, then they are going to have to take responsibility for that and be held accountable for it, depending on the level. Sometimes it's just families going through a rough patch. It's up and down. There hasn't been any major harm or hurt. It's just people getting angry and not dealing with their anger in an appropriate way, but not to the extent where they're abusing others. Then you've got the extreme where it's just, there's abuse, there's violence, and it's not safe. In that case, it's making sure that everybody is safe and that people are being held accountable. Crimes need to be answered for. But typically, when I work with families and with people, it's about maintaining a neutrality, remaining neutral, taking in the full picture, seeing where the issues are and how we can address those issues. This is how I worked with people and how I ran Warrior Kids. That's why I never chose sides. It never fit for me. And you'll even notice with my videos here, it's not like I'm speaking to mothers or fathers alone. I'm not choosing sides. It's just I'm speaking to people, to parents, to anybody working in this field. And you'll notice that with a lot of my videos, if I'm talking about anger, what annoys me a lot is when it comes to anger issues, it seems to be predominantly a male thing. Yet I've had a lot of women, a lot of mothers come to me over the years saying that they were having trouble with anger. And could I support them? One of the books I wrote, Rona Moon, which stems from an old Māori legend, Rona and the Moon. And that is about a girl called Rona who has anger issues. She curses the moon and the moon comes down and snatches her up. This is a very old story that's talking about a young woman with anger issues. Anger affects us all. Our emotions, we all have emotions. They're natural, they're in us. So we all need support. In my work, I have really strived to remain neutral, to take the facts for the family in question. Because when I'm working with a family, they matter. Not all the ideas and, different theories that come from universities or anything like that. It's what's in front of me with this family and what will work for them. Whether that's couple therapy, family therapy, working with the children, working with the parents. It's what is going to work. If you're enjoying my content, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Talk soon.